deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual, Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm having a blast with these podcasts. Got a special treat for y'all today. We're going to talk a lot about kicking and kind of the mental side of it and trusting the process, which I've talked about before in previous podcasts, but I want to make sure that everyone's kind of understanding that, this is a process that once you get good at and you trust it, those are the things that really stand out when you're under pressure in those performance type of scenarios when you're making kicks and trying to win games. So today I've got a special guest on with me, straight out of South Africa, Vihan van der Riet. And so we're definitely going to be talking a lot about kicking. He's probably one of my best students, and honestly, I've taught him a lot through like WhatsApp and through just Zooms and things like that. So we've done a lot of coaching back and forth through the internet, essentially. He was here in the States for a while, many years ago, had a couple tryouts in the NFL, but had to go back to South Africa to kind of continue doing what he's doing. And, he's coaching over there in South Africa. He's got his Rocket Foot Kicking Academy, and you guys are going to see a little bit about his kicking, and you're going to be pretty impressed. I've got to tell you, I think his form is probably better than mine ever was, honestly. He's very dedicated, very, very influential with the peers that he has there in South Africa, and he's doing a very good job coaching the guys over there. Matter of fact, he has one of his clients who's got into the CFL, the Canadian Football League, for a little while, and is now playing a little bit of arena football. So we'll be right back after this quick commercial break, and then I'll introduce Vihan with you.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
And there is the man, the myth, the legend, Vihan Rocketfoot van der Riet. I want to introduce Vihan to the group today, and we're going to be talking, like I said, about kicking form and fundamentals and just trusting the process of that. And I got to tell you, Vihan, when I met you years ago through the internet, of course, I think you all sent me an email and wanted some information about kicking and wanted to come to the States and get yourself a tryout. And that happened, of course. You actually went out to San Diego to work with another kicking coach, which is perfectly fine. Michael Husted ran a pro camp out there, and that's really why I kind of recommended coming to him with regards to just kind of getting that exposure. But in all reality, we had to get you better as far as a kicker, and you spent some time out there and learned a little bit about the process. But I think when you kind of understood a little bit more about pro form kicking, and we got to start to talk on WhatsApp, you kind of learned a lot more. Very impressed with your knowledge and your discipline and just the passion that you have for kicking. Not just kicking just itself, but using this technique that I was taught, of course. So I'm just passing this down. All this information about this Proform kicking technique did not come from me. It came from a gentleman by the name of Jim Gattano, who is my mentor and kicking coach for many, many years. Still coaches a little bit with me as well here in Jacksonville, Florida. But Vihan, I want to introduce you. Welcome to the show. You are my first guest ever, so I'm pretty excited about that. Definitely want to talk a lot about your experience with Proform kicking and just kind of talk about the passion that you have for it and the details that you've actually taught me a lot of stuff too. So I gotta give you props for that, because I never knew what the golden ratio was. I never heard about the Fibonacci sequence or Fibonacci code until you mentioned it one day and you said everything just fits so perfectly. And I'm like, oh, really? Does it? And so I kind of learn as I go as well. And it's super cool to hear your information, the stuff that you've brought to the table with regards to Proform. So tell us a little bit about your experience with Proform in general, and tell us like what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Really excited to be here. I think when you when you're as clumsy and as unathletic as I am, then you tend to struggle, and when you struggle, you tend to discover things and learn a lot more. Um, so yeah, I mean, like you said, it started. What is it, like 10 years ago when I came over to the States and I met you in San Diego, and yeah, we started talking, and I don't know, the things that you said just kind of resonated. But not just that, just watching your film and seeing you kick, it just kind of made sense. Like it was just, I don't know, when you watch. I think your film on YouTube has been watched a lot, and I think I'm maybe like 20% of those views at least. Just visually trying to figure this thing out, and I realized pretty soon that it's not something that you can copy. There's just too many small little details, and yeah, I probably sort of hounded you for years to uncover more of this information. And but like you said, you learn from Jim, and you're passing it down, and I'm sort of doing the same thing. And it's almost impossible not to. You want to talk about it. You want to teach other people, and it's because you experience that same thing when you make a breakthrough and you kick a ball, and it just feels so effortless and it just flows, and it just makes so much sense. So yeah, so out in South Africa, I think the time difference is going to put me to the test here. It's just past midnight, but I think you said to me once that if I roll you out of bed at 3 a.m, then you should still be able to kick with Proform, like, and so yeah, this could be a true test. So yeah, out in South Africa, coaching, and yeah, just passing down what I've learned through from learning from you, uh, and things I've discovered myself, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so really enjoying it, and it's just part of finding your purpose.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned one thing briefly right at the beginning of that is failure. You said that you've failed a bunch, and you've learned. You said your clumsy self, of course, but I was clumsy too, if that really matters as well. But it's kind of you learn this process kind of through trial and error. I can give you all the information in the world. It's up to you to kind of try it. And I think there's a lot of kickers out there that kind of need to experience a different way of kicking. And as well as I do, there's a lot of junk out there, especially when we talk about these coaches out in South Africa and even Australia, New Zealand that are coaching the rugby type of kick, and it's just got a totally different mindset, and they really don't understand really what we do. But that's the thing too, is that that the process that we have learned and that I've taught you, and you've kind of learned a little bit on your own, of course, as well, is something that once you understand it, and you're able to do it. The best part about kicking, and once you get to that level of success with performing the technique, which you've been dialing in on all the details for the last 10 years, and I think, hey guys, I'm telling you, this guy, Vihan Rocketfoot Vanderreet, should be playing at some professional level of football, even though he's 35. Now, I've seen even guys, Jorge Leon from Mexico City got in the Arena Football League at the age of, I think, 39 or 40. So there's a chance. And I'm telling you, Jorge had, very good consistency. He just didn't have a very powerful leg, but you have both, man. I'm telling you. When Vihan sends me videos through WhatsApp, and I'm just blown away. Some of them the learning experiences of one recently, he almost fell over, and it's like, yeah, I don't know why I'm, doing all this, and I explained a couple of things to you through basically a voice message as well, but just a matter of understanding the form and getting a good feel for it, and that's one thing that I'm sure you've discovered already with this form of technique. Once you get good at it, you kind of transfer that into a feel, and so you just remember the feel of the kick, and your body will just put itself in a position to make that kick based on the feel that you want to experience again. And you mentioned another thing too, is like just your passion and just all the time spent in learning this stuff. You just say, the word addiction came to my mind. It's like, man, if anybody has an addiction for anything in life, it should be something like this, as far as a certain skill. Because when you hit that good ball, and I imagine it's much like golfers, and I say I imagine because I'm a horrible golfer. I'm that one exception. I'm the kicker that was not very good at golf. I'm still not very good at golf, but I don't play much anymore because of my back the way it is. I'd rather, honestly, be fishing. But with regards to golfers who experience that timing and that effortless, timing when you hit a ball, it's the same kind of thing with kicking, and I think that all the hard work and dedication that you put into your abilities to kick a football the way you are now, and back then, gosh, there was a few years back, you were sending me videos like, oh my gosh, I think I figured it out, and this is amazing, and I watch these videos, I'm like, man, he's kicking the ball really well, and then fast forward to now, a few years later, you've even refined that form even more, and you're kicking the ball even better now. So that's why I'm telling you, any scouts or coaches out there watching this video need to look up Vihan Rocketfoot Vandereet and bring him into camp, man. You'd be impressed. Obviously, you kick a lot of rugby balls during your time, but NFL football is a little different. But arena balls are better. I think you kick arena ball just like a rugby ball because they have that same bounce. So tell me about what, as far as your coaching there in South Africa, how's that going? And I want you to kind of touch upon one specific a client of yours, and you know who I'm talking about, and tell me a little bit about that person and how successful he's been using Proform.
Yeah, I think one thing that you always experience if you kind of go against the grain and you do something different, you'll always if you try to revolutionize something, you'll always find some resistance. So that has been part of the journey, definitely. Not being part of the established, let's say the established industry, and coming from the outside with new things, people aren't always comfortable with that. But as I mean, I've just been doing this for so long, it's taken hold, and I get really good results, especially with young kids. You know, age 8 and up. Literally, Mike, you know this. They're like little computers that you can program, and that's so much easier than working with somebody like you, having worked with me at age 26, starting this process. It's a little more difficult. Um, I've coached a lot of guys, and a lot of guys come to you and they want to get better at kicking, but you know they don't really have that same sort of obsessed passion for this. And every now and then you find somebody like that, and that's who you were referring to, Henry now. Classic case of the student becomes the master kind of situation. And I started working with him, and we actually were telling each other the story a week ago or so. But I was busy training on a field at a university, and there was a field next to that field, and there was a guy kicking on that field, and I was kicking from 50 yards, and he moved up to 55. So I move up to 56, and he moves up to 57, and we just kept going back at the adjacent fields next to one another, and eventually we both got to a distance where we couldn't make the kicks anymore, and it was like sort of like, all right, well, let's see who this guy is. And so I go over, and it's a young kid, and we immediately hit it off and start talking kicking, and you know. You asked me what I was doing there, and I was explaining, like, I just came back from the States, and I'm trying to get back there, but I need to get better, and this is what I'm doing. So I'm coaching, and so he kind of fell into the Rocketfoot program, and through this process, he discovered that, just like I did just a little earlier, he discovered that you could actually kick a ball for a living and not have to play rugby, and as a consequence of that kick. And as soon as he figured that out, there was no stopping him. And, we did like a fundraiser and sent him over to you in Jacksonville. He worked with you guys for a bit. He did his first try was with the Jacksonville Sharks, but they were a little apprehensive about signing a guy with no experience whatsoever, never even played college football, never even left his home country. This is like the first time that he left his home country. But anyway, fast forward, he eventually got an opportunity in Portland with the Mammoths. I think that was not the Arena Football League. It was correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it was the Indoor Football League or something like that. And then did really well there in his first season. I think he got second team All Pro, or what do you call it, second team something, whatever.
Mhm.
And he then went on 3 years later, and he got drafted in the CFL Global Draft. And it's a funny story because I was sort of talking to those coaches at that time, and they had called a bunch of free agents across the world, and they were like, "Would you like to come to Saskatchewan? We're interested in signing you." And I think honestly, you knew this coach as well, Craig Dickinson.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was like, we really like your kicking and stuff. And I was like sitting there on on draft night and waiting for the call. And the next thing I knew, Henry was signed and I wasn't. And I was like, what? Kind of bittersweet, but still happy, of course, for Henry. This kid that I discovered in high school, and just seeing him go through this through this journey it was still satisfying. But obviously, I had a dream too. And then a week later, not even a week later, it was like the next day, I got a call from the same coach, from Coach Dickinson, and he said, check your inbox or check your email or something, and they had signed me as a free agent the very next day. So for a time period, myself and Henry were on the same roster. But unfortunately, the timing of these things weren't great. It was smack bang in the middle of COVID. I was in South Africa, and Henry was in the States, and it was easier for him to travel to Canada. And there was some sort of a travel ban between South Africa and Canada, and I couldn't go. So they had released me maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks after. But I was a professional kicker for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. I, as of course, as a coach myself as well, to see two of the guys that I've worked with and helped get to the professional level, to see both of you guys on the same roster at a very high level of football. Obviously, the Canadian Football League is just a one step, maybe a little bit below the NFL, but still very, very, very good players on those teams and a lot of
Yeah.
talent there. But one thing I want to remind, and of course you know the story as well, but Henry Nell, his story, like he had a dream. He like literally never knew anything about American football. He played rugby up until whatever age he was at the time. He woke up after this dream. His dream was him specifically kicking a football, American football, in an American football game on the left hash at like 37 yards. I can't remember the exact distance, but he remembers it vividly. But he's never even seen American football before. So I was like, that is just a godsend. That is just so crazy. That's obviously, sent him the message that this is something that he needs to pursue. And I think from that point forward, he moved on with you, working with you there in South Africa. And I remember the phone call that you had with me, and I think you had him on as well, but we talked a lot about kicking, and maybe it was just with him, I can't remember, but he was very adamant about getting to the States, and that was kind of a challenge as well. But once he got here, as a matter of fact, I always bring this up as I saw this the video just recently of him doing those onside pop-up kicks. I know you probably know which one I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
those were just incredible pop-up onside kicks. And I remember the first day he came to the States, I mean, he was fresh off the airplane from South Africa. Of course, he wasn't going to be, got a lot of jet lag and may not be, 100% clearly, but I was, working with him in person. We were doing field goals, a little bit of kickoffs. And then he said, tell me about this onside kick, what's that pop-up thing you do? And so and of course I'm barefoot, of course. And I show him a couple kicks and I pop them up pretty good, not incredibly good, but when he tried it, he was not good at all. And Henry, he's very competitive, and he was very frustrated that he couldn't do what I was doing barefoot. And so I said, just relax, you'll get better at these. And I mean, my gosh, those kicks were just incredible. And so, Henry has put a lot of time and effort in getting his skills better. I know he took a little time off. He got married, I believe, and he lives in the States now permanently. But took some time off, and now he's kicking in the Arena League, and hopefully he'll get back up into the Canadian League or maybe even the NFL. I'm telling you, there's a lot of opportunities. The competition nowadays is a lot more than it was back when I played. But you guys coming over from South Africa and all these Australians and New Zealanders that come over. Matter of fact, my very first team, my first experience with the NFL was the Chargers. And in preseason, one of my roommates was a guy by the name of Darren Bennett, and he had played 13 years of Australian rules football. coming from Perth, Australia. And he'd never played American football, but he was brought over by the Chargers to compete for the punting job. And he, obviously he was really good at it, but he'd had a bunch of knee surgeries and all kinds of stuff. That's a very rough sport, obviously. And he literally came over as a 30-year-old rookie in the NFL. So that's why I keep you guys' hopes up, as far as the age is concerned. Even though you don't have experience, if you can kick lights out in front of these coaches, which you can, that will make them kind of like open their eyes and say, give you an opportunity. Matter of fact, Darren actually spent the first year with the Chargers on practice squad. So, but with regards to just the kicking form and the fundamentals and all that, and the abilities that you have, there's a couple videos I want to show a field goal video of you kicking, and just I think there's some audio on that, and you could just hear. Every time I watch you kick and I hear the ball come off your foot, I'm like, oh my God, that was a monster kick. So here's one little clip of you kicking a field goal. We'll show a kickoff later on, but just watch the fundamentals that Vihan displays in these kicks. Incredible. And one of the things that I want to really iterate and really emphasize, if for all the kickers out there watching this, did you notice something different on the kickoff? All you guys out there want to hurdle. You say, oh, I can run faster, I can swing hard, all that jazz. I'm telling you guys, you can get just as good of distance and power, just incredible power, incredible distance, and more so, incredible control when you just do the form correctly, even landing on the plant foot. That's my point. You see the Vihan landed on his plant foot. He didn't kick it really hard. It wasn't an aggressive kick. It looked like it was just an extension of a field goal, which actually that's what I would teach. That's what I would teach everybody to do. I had a year when I was playing in the NFL. It was 1998 specifically, where my back was really bothering me. There was something went on. I had some nerve pain going down my legs, and I was like, man, this hurts. And I had to visit the trainers, and we got an MRI, and they discovered there was 2 levels of discs that were kind of protruding and pinching those nerves, causing a ton of pain. And I had 2 options. They said, listen, we can put you on injury reserve right now because you're going to need surgery. It looks like it's pretty bad, and just depends on your pain level. But the second option we have now is that if you can play through this, we're going to be some anti-inflammatories, but we don't want to get involved in the narcotic stuff. You don't want to put Band-Aids on a problem that's this bad. We're going to give you some anti-inflammatories, and if you can go through the season without surgery or whatever, obviously if you can make it through the whole season, we'll get you in surgery after that. And so I chose to do that. But that specific year, ironically, because I couldn't kick off real aggressive, which I wasn't trying to anyways, but there was a little built-in aggression. I will be honest with you, I wasn't perfect. I tried sometimes a little harder. Sometimes I would kind of accidentally land on my kicking foot. I'm doing what you guys call the hurdle, but not that year. That year I couldn't kick off really aggressively. I had to be stay under control and not kick it really aggressively. And I tell you, and honestly, facts don't lie. That year was my best year statistically on distance on my kickoff on average. I averaged more yards on my kickoffs that year where my back was killing me than I did on any other year that I played in the NFL. That should speak volumes, because what that means is like that less is more. I tried less to kick it hard because I didn't want my back to hurt. But ironically, the balls went further. I don't know about the hang time as far as the average hang time I had that year, but I know the distance was there. So that should kind of make you understand that with a controlled swing, you still can get some good power. Vihan, I want you to kind of talk specifics with regards to what do you think, the tech. What are the greatest parts about ProForm, and why do they work? Because you're a physiological kind of guy. I mean, you kind of understand the physics behind, I think more so than maybe I do. You understand those physics behind the actual kick itself. What do you think is the difference maker between ProForm and any other kind of kicking form or fundamentals out there?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's 2 paradigms of thinking that's involved with kicking, and I think one of the paradigms is that the goalposts or where you're trying to kick the ball, that's the target. And then guys get roped into this idea that they should be trying to guide or steer the ball there. And I think the biggest difference that Proform presents is just this idea that the ball is in fact the target, and you don't need to do anything to get the ball to go there. You just line up in a specific way, create a certain relationship with the ball, and you kick it with all of your potential. And the relative angle and the way that you've set up, that's what's going to make the ball go in a certain direction. And that allows you to kick the ball with your full potential. You're actually kicking the ball. You're not sort of flickering between kicking it and where it needs to go, and in the attempt to steer it somewhere. You are literally kicking the ball with your full potential.
And that's really has a lot to do with trusting the system, trusting the process. And that's, I'm telling you that I've talked about this before in previous podcasts, but trusting that process is one of the best feelings I've ever had as an athlete at the highest level of football in the world. It's tough. And it's tough to get to that position where you can actually not care where the ball goes. Yes, I said it. You can't care where the ball goes, just like what Vihan had mentioned. Like the ball, the target that you're looking at is not really your primary goal. Your goal is to focus on the ball, trust your fundamentals in your mechanics, and let those kick the ball for you. It's a backwards way of thinking. That really, I think, resonates with. I know it resonated with me, but I'm teaching that to my guys as well. And you've already got clearly an idea of and you did years ago, but maybe even more so now that you've gotten so good at your technique and you're seeing the ball fly. And I'm telling you, based on my experience, I mean, it's tough to get to that level of trust, because the only way to get to that level of trust is to do it in a game. Like, man, the last thing I want to do is like just not care where the ball goes and then just yank a field goal. I don't want to do that. So you got to have some really good trust. But the thing is, and I was taught this early on in my NFL career by Brian Barker, our punter, who took me under his wing. He was a 4 or 5 year veteran, probably 5 or 6 year veteran at that point. He said to me one day, he said one thing you'll never forget. He said, bro, on game day, don't ever think you have to do anything more on game day, because the field is the same length, the yardage is the same width, and the goalposts are exactly the same. They look a little bit different, might be a little higher post, but in all reality, everything is exactly the same as you practicing it on the field across the street over there, right, during your practices. So if you're really good at what you're doing during practices and you're making kicks all over, all the time, which you are, why would you try harder on game day? Like, you got the excitement in you already. The adrenaline's already flowing. So let the adrenaline, let that excitement kind of be the power for you, and kind of almost want to feel like you want to be relaxed and try less. Because and I've told this to many of my athletes as well, and even maybe so on some previous podcasts, is that what makes the difference between great kickers and not so great kickers. Athletically, when they're kicking out on the field on their own, when it really doesn't matter, both of them are good. Both the two types I just mentioned are very good. Okay, they're good kickers, right? Well, you get them in the game, and one's not so great, one's great. Well, the difference between those two in the game situation is the one that's not so great is trying harder to make the kick. He feels like he's got to do something different just because it's game day. And that, and mentally, I think that plays a huge role in, kickers. We have pressure as is, we have a lot of pressure. We're the only one everyone's looking at, right? So if we miss a kick, everyone thinks it's us, right? Well, if you get rid of that concept of trying harder to make a kick just because it matters more, then you're gonna do things differently than you've always done in practice. And so that's where the trust in the mechanics really come in, and the opposite kind of way of thinking. Most kickers are focused on the goalpost. Yes, I understand that's the ultimate goal, is to make the kick, make the ball go through the uprights and over the crossbar. But in reality, if you just understand that the mechanics do that for you, because you've built the mechanics up. I always refer to like as like a robot. If you were to program a robot to do the same thing over and over and over again, what changes? Nothing changes, because he's a robot. He does the same thing every single time. So you got to be a little bit, if you're a mechanical kicker, you got to be a little bit robotic, a lot robotic. You have to kind of do these things consistently. And one thing I know, Vihan, I know that a lot of the things that we've talked about over WhatsApp and all these little details about kicking, there are a lot of little things that we can focus on when learning this Proform technique. But I know, and I understand, and you understand this too, it's a very simple thing if you just do it. And the hardest part about learning this stuff is what I said earlier about caring where the ball goes. If you care where the ball goes, none of this stuff is really going to fit. Like, you won't do these things. And I know you can relate, and you've even mentioned that as well. You kind of learn that as you win as well. And I've mentioned that as well to you about that. But share a little bit about your mental experience and what you've kind of accomplished with your kicking, and obviously your coaching. I see you demonstrating for your guys there too. That's another important point because there's a lot of kicking coaches out there that won't demonstrate. They'll tell you to do things, but they don't show you how to do it. And I feel fortunate that I'm almost 53 years old, be 53 in May, but I still to this day will demonstrate for my kids, because it's easy. And like Leon, you mentioned earlier about waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you should jump out of bed and kick a field goal, no problem. So, share a little bit about your mental side of that, and how it's a very simple process once you understand it and get it, and know that you don't. And I've always told my kids that I'm in the business of simplifying the process because, again, going back to that pressure thing, we have enough pressure as it is. Why make the process more complicated by all these motion and movements that you maybe have been taught by some other coach when you can kind of get an understanding? Once you get an understanding about pro form, the sky's the limit because you don't have to. It's a very easy process to do. It's things that you would do on a normal daily basis anyway. So share a little bit about those experiences that you've had as well.
Yeah, I think most people's and you'd agree with me in this. It's just the transition from caring where the ball goes to not caring where the ball goes is the most difficult part because you're so you're so in tune with this idea that when you've lined up, if you're a right-footed kicker, your target is always to your left, and just instinctively you want to do things to the left, and it's exactly that inhibits you from reaching your full potential. Because if you don't treat the ball as the target, you can never achieve things, like what you see with pro form, like a very balanced and vertical body position when you kick the ball. Impossible to achieve if you're turning. Every time you turn, as you turn, you're just simply relocating the ball, making it more and more difficult, just adding more and more cognitive load, like making it harder and harder to kick the ball. So you're actually, and I'll get back to the mental stuff now, but you're actually creating the problem that you think you're solving. That's the irony of it, is you think you're solving the problem because you're trying to get this ball to go there, which is to your left, so to speak. And in doing so, you're actually creating all the problems. Whereas with Proform, you solve those problems by not doing that at all. Just just carrying not where the ball needs to go, but carrying the ball is and kicking it, and then allowing the natural mechanics of your body, just like a golf swing. If you're swinging a golf club, you don't think about turning your body; it just turns naturally. And it's the same thing that happens here, and that's hard for people to understand, and it's hard for them to let go of those, even if it's not conscious, subconsciously, it's hard to let go of those preconceived ideas. You see, and you saw it with my feet as well. I mean, I always make the joke that I've got clown feet that just sometimes do whatever they want. When you're running down your approach lines, in your mind, you think you're going straight. And then when you watch the film, you see your feet are opening up and running inside lines and outside of lines and stuff like that. So that can be a little bit tricky. And, I think, like you said, the easiest way, and, I wish I knew this 10 years ago, if you just told me what to do and I just did it, that is the easiest way, because there is no other way. You have to do it. I was actually talking to a student today saying, there's no drill for this. You have to run on these lines. You have to run on these lines. That is it. It's non-negotiable. You got to just do it. And I know what it feels like when you're going down these lines. It feels wrong. Your brain is telling you to do certain things. Just ignore all of that. Another thing that I like to do, Mike, and I don't know, maybe you've had this experience, but I always tell kids, like, forget that this is kicking. Let's say this was a dance school, and I was telling you, put this foot here and do this with your hand and spin around here or whatever. You'd be able to do that because you have no preconceived ideas of how to dance. And I'm just telling you what to do. It's the same idea here. But once you add a ball into the equation, your subconscious mind takes over and it has all these preconceived ideas. But if you can treat it in the same way, like, this is what you need to do, let's just say hypothetically it's not kicking at all. Just forget that it's kicking and just do this. Run on these lines, swing your leg here, keep your body in this position, and it's as easy as that. And you can see it when you have kids do dry swings and you take the ball out of the equation. Everyone can do it. Once you add the ball back, then it's a lot harder. So yeah, it's definitely, it's not physically difficult. It's there's a couple of mental tricks that you have to teach yourself, and once you can get over those, those boundaries, then it's a piece of cake. It is so easy kicking the ball this way. It's so easy, especially like, dude, if rugby players can learn this technique, they're going to be, it's next level what they'll be able to accomplish. And kicking football is incredibly difficult. It's very, very difficult, but doing it with pro form is easier than what I was trying to do 10 years ago, and what I see other kids doing, all the turns and poor body position, and just, there's so many things going on, there's so many variables, and within this system there's so little variables. I think
Mhm.
that's the biggest takeaway. So yeah.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you and everything. When you're talking, it sounds like things that I would be talking to my clients as well. So I don't know if you've learned them from me or just kind of learned them through your experience, but that's the thing is like, Vihan, you just mentioned, about putting the ball there after doing a bunch of dry swings. Well, the ball makes you do different things. And I personally believe it's because where you think the ball should go. So again, I tell all my clients, I say, listen, the sooner you can care less about where the ball goes or not care at all, the better, the sooner you're going to understand this and do this. And you said another thing too, you said, just do it. And it's funny because Jim, when he's coaching kids, we both coaching kids at certain times, and he would get so frustrated because kids just can't do what we're asking them to do. And I
Yeah.
understand there's that mindset of, I just have this ability or this habit of turning because but if you just do it, like you said, you just run normal. I've told that to my kids a million times as well. Just run
you
as normal
you
as
you,
possible.
you you told me that last week, Mike.
Well, it's a lot easier said than done. That's the thing is
Yeah.
like, kids just don't understand. And like, just, if you just do these things, another thing I want to mention too, is that and I don't know if you've experienced this as well, not only as a student of pro form, but also as a coach, and mention it to some of these kids. But have you noticed that there's a lot of opposites where kids will say, well, I feel like I want to do this. And then when you say, well, don't do that, do this, it's exactly the opposite of what they think kicking is. Have you noticed
Yeah.
that? Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
things also that are not, they don't feel powerful. That's why another thing I talk about a lot. When a guy hits a ball with good form, like, wow, that was a good hit, good timing, good all. I ask them, the first thing comes out of my mouth is like, how much effort did you put into that? And
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
always say like nearly nothing. I
Nothing.
said, you see what I mean? And
Yeah.
then that's where you
It's
get
it's
that
the,
efficiency. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's the efficiency, but it's also the difference between what feels powerful and what is powerful. There's a huge difference between those two things. You can turn your hips aggressively and swing your leg at 200 kilometers an hour, or 200 miles an hour. Sorry for all the Americans here. Um, but you know but if you're in poor body position and you're hitting the ball in the wrong place, and your plant foot's too narrow and you're not balanced, and like all of that effort that you're making is producing you know a certain type of kick, but not it's so much more. There's so much more controlled power that goes into the ball if you get all the things right. If you get your body position correct and you're balanced and your plant foot's in the correct location, you're swinging down the correct line, and you're firstly running in the correct lines, and you're creating the correct relationship with the ball, then it becomes effortless power. It doesn't have to feel, because kids mistake that. And you're so right when you say that. Kids mistake something aggressive, that it feels powerful to them. It feels like they're generating all this power because it's aggressive. But there's a huge difference between that. I was exactly like that at the start. I don't know if you remember how horrific my form was when I first saw you in in the States. I mean, I had no follow through. I had very poor body position. I looked like a bunch of scaffolding that was falling in on itself. And it was all just aggression and just muscling the ball as hard as I could. And I tore a meniscus doing that. At the Chargers workout, obviously I was trying to send the ball to the moon at
Mm-hmm.
the Chargers workout.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I learned over time that timing and just controlled efficiency is way more powerful than any sort of aggression. Um, and that's exactly what you're referring to. Like when you kick the ball and you do everything right, you don't even feel it on your foot. It just pops and it's just gone, and it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of kids don't understand until they get that one good kick. And I don't know if you've ever had your athletes like turn and smile at you, like, I get it now. Like, then that light bulb's goes off in their head, and they've experienced that one kick that they've been waiting for a while. And you as a coach, and me as a coach as well, when I see that smile, I'm like, man, that's why I do what I do, man. I love
Yeah,
seeing the results from those guys, and like, man, they finally got it now. And then from that point on, that's when your addiction starts. I can promise you, when you
yeah,
kick a ball with a minimal effort and it goes a mile, you're
yeah,
automatically addicted. You will never want to kick another way in your life. Would you
yeah,
feel the
and
same?
yeah, 100%. And it just feels so good to move that way. To move that way. You know, the Proform method, and your body naturally just wants to move that way. When you're turning and you're trying to guide the ball to the target, some of your momentum is still heading in the original direction that you were running. So your body is still moving that way. Your swing's moving in another. It's like you're corkscrewing your entire body. It doesn't feel good to kick that way. It feels way better to be tall, balanced, vertical, and swing forward at the ball. And then this gradual natural rotation takes place. It's so light. I don't know how else to explain it. It looks, when you watch the film and stuff, it looks like I'm really kicking the ball hard, but my body doesn't feel it. I mean, I'm 35. I kick like 5 days a week because I have a problem, because I like kicking so much. But dude, I have to tell you, and Henry's preached to me about this for a long time. I don't even warm up. I just get there, I kick. And the movement is so efficient. It's like I don't even need a warm up. Let me rephrase. I kick myself warm. I'm not trying
Right.
to give some bad
I was
advice
going to
here.
say, you better be doing those drills, one step, two step, and any other drills you think you need to warm up with. But the
Yeah,
drills are your warm up. Yes.
yeah, sure. So I'm not stretching for an hour and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. But I mean, I think you'll mention it, but stretching is a different thing on its own. It's not something that I like to do before a kicking session. But I like to kick myself warm. But my point is that the movement is so efficient, like it's not traumatic for your body to go through this movement. It's not like you're kicking legs swinging across your body that way, and your upper body's moving in the opposite direction, and your spine is just twisting in the middle of that. It's not that. It's not at all. It's as easy and as effortless and as natural for your body as if you were to compare it to anything else, just punning a ball out of your hand. Just
Mhm.
it's as easy as that.
Yeah. Yeah. So wrapping up, I just kind of want to reiterate the whole kind of concept, the mindset, understanding that there's a lot of technique involved in any sort of process, anything that you're going to do in life, hammering a nail into a piece of wood, or having leverage on a bolt that's really hard to get off your car or something like that, which these are personal experiences of mine, by the way. So I kind of relate myself to these experiences that I've had, but there's always a good process and a good system, and it has a lot to do with leveraging what you can add to the kick itself. And that, I always give my kids the example of myself. I mean, I'm 5'8" on a really good day. If you put me on an inversion table and stretch me out real good upside down, and I stood up, I might be 5'8", but 5'7" officially when I played in the NFL. 180 pounds as a very average athlete, maybe a little bit above average, but I never considered myself someone that's just, I should play in the NFL because look at me, I'm big, strong, and freakishly athletic, because I was clearly not. Right. So that tells me, like, well, what else is there that made me play at that level and made me stay at that level? That's another big deal too. Once you get into that level, you got to get better and maintain. That was one thing that I learned really quickly, is like, man, once I made a roster, I'm like, oh, this is great. But then I was excited for like 10 seconds. And I'm like, oh crap, what do I do now? Well, I have to maintain. I got to get better. And so the process that I learned, I just got better at that and trusted that more. And so that's really where I'm going with this whole concept in life in general. Everything that you do in your life, the mindset, the decisions you make, and every process that you have of thinking about things that you're doing, and just understand that there's always a good way of doing something. And if you're involved in an industry that requires a certain skill that you have to do physically, find that best way that works best for you. And again, we're trying to kind of eliminate a lot of the aggression you just mentioned, as far as how efficient this is. And a lot of young kickers that are out there, and they might be kind of flexible, but they're just really, they don't get hurt very much. They can kick real aggressively, but us at our age, man, you can hurt yourself kicking real aggressively. And so I think there's a lot to be said with the fluidity of this form and the technique and how it allows you to use 100% of what you can actually leverage yourself into that football, where most guys, might be really big, strong, and freakishly athletic, that kick a certain way, and they kind of feel like they might have had a couple good ones here and there, and then they're stuck with that. Oh, I remember I had to wear my mouth guard because I almost chipped a tooth. I was gritting so hard, and that happens. Guys that are putting so much energy into a kick when they don't need to. And that's where, me as a coach, I kind of struggle sometimes with athletes that are big, strong, and athletic, and they can already kick it pretty far. They don't like to take off. Like, what, you told me to lower my back? Yeah, I'm telling you to lower your backswing, because again, you talk about golf. Golf is a very stationary skill. Golfers have no momentum unless you're Happy Gilmore. I always use that example as well, because Happy Gilmore, on the driver, would drive it a mile down the fairway, and everyone's like, oh, ooh and on about him. Well, he added, obviously it's a fictional movie, but he added forward momentum with his swing. And that's why it went so far. Well, we're doing the same thing as well, but a lot of kickers don't understand how to make a ball go a certain direction by swinging forward, and we've kind of already got that down. And so there's a lot of kids out there that are, unfortunately, still doing the things that feel comfortable for them, and that's where another issue that we have as coaches, I know you'll agree with this one, is trying to get a guy away from doing the things that he's comfortable doing. Anytime you're creating new habits in anything in life, you're going to have to go through some experiences where you're not comfortable, because creating new habits can't be comfortable at first. It's got to be a little awkward. But once you get good at it, and I know you can relate to this at first, your form was horrendous, as you said. But once you got good at pro form and you got that addiction going, you had the one or two good kicks, like, wow, this is crazy. Then you're like, okay, well, I want to learn more. I want to do more. I do more. So any closing remarks you got, Vihan?
Well, I just wanted to connect with what you said. I always tell students that I'm coaching, if it feels comfortable, you're doing something wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're trying to learn this and like you're trying to figure something out, and this is something I really had to teach myself. You kind of get back into this sort of groove where you're doing the same thing again, and then it feels normal and comfortable. And I have to remind myself, wait a minute, like if I'm doing something that feels normal and comfortable, that means that I'm not changing anything. I'm not actually working on something, so. But this is obviously just in the process of learning this. Of course, it becomes comfortable over time. But a good trick or tip that I would give somebody that's learning something like this, let's just use Proform as an example. If you're going through changes and you're making changes, I always tell guys, like, let's say you're working on your approach lines, I always ask them, like, does that feel comfortable? And they're like, yeah, it feels comfortable. Like, well, then you're not doing it correctly, because it's supposed to feel unusual and awkward when it's new, and that would give you the answer that you're doing something correctly, and then over time you can make that feel more comfortable. But it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think we can make a series out of this, because there's so much to say about about kicking technique and the mental stuff that's involved, and the mechanics of it. But yeah, always a pleasure. Just learning the stuff from you, and you learned it from Jim, and I get to pass it on to some fortunate guys here that see the potential here.
Yeah, very good. Very well said. And one thing I did mention to you prior to getting on here is, when I asked you to come on the show, I said, it wouldn't be more than, 30 minutes long. And we're going at 48 minutes now. But that's the thing, is like, we get so passionate about talking about what we love to do, and just sharing the knowledge and information about it, that we just keep talking about it. And just love the information. And again, Vihan, I got to tell you, man, I've learned a lot from you as well. So me as a coach, coaching for almost 19 years now, and just kind of learning a lot about the mindsets and kind of the processes, and even just the really fine detailed stuff that you've even taught me. I really commend you for that, and commend you for your passion and your skills that you're demonstrating on a daily basis with the guys that you're working with. And hopefully, like I mentioned before, I brought up the sport golf. I think that golf's been around a million years. They have a basic foundation of how to swing the club properly. Most pro golfers will teach somewhat similar stuff. With kicking, it's not like that. There's still a lot of different ways that guys are kicking, a lot of different ways that coaches are coaching, which is unfortunate in my opinion. But one day I hope that Proform will be kind of the basic foundation for kickers at all levels. And because again, you know as well as I do the technique is proven. You know that the balls that you hit with good form and good technique, even when you watch the video back on it, you can see all the fine detailed things that you've been working on, and you can see how well the ball goes, and you can feel how well you've hit a ball, and I think that has a lot to do with all the hard work that you put into this effort. All the effort you put into this on a daily basis, really, it speaks volumes of your passion and not only perfecting this form for yourself. Hopefully, you still kick and keep kicking, and maybe get an opportunity. Hopefully soon. If there's any coaches out there watching, look up this guy. This Vihan. Who's this Rocket Foot guy? I always refer to my clients and say, listen, are you following Rocket Foot on Instagram? I said, follow him. Watch the stuff. His form is much better, I think, than mine. Was maybe in the NFL. I got better as I started coaching. I started to get better with my technique, because now I have to really, really do what I'm telling these guys I'm trying to show them to do, of course. So again, thank you so much for your time, Vihan. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, good. I just enjoyed, always enjoyed talking about kicking and technique and pro form especially. And maybe we'll see. Maybe I'll see you in Jacksonville soon.
Yeah.
Just up the road from you. Continue the pro form legacy at the Jaguars. Maybe.
That's right. Well, thank you guys for watching this episode. I know we've been a little longer than we typically do, but again, like I mentioned before, we're very passionate about what we do, and it's kind of a niche sort of thing. You have to have a certain special type of mindset to kind of understand and learn this process. But once you do, we've said it all along. This whole podcast today is once you get it down, it's just simple. You can repeat it, and it's just it's a very effortless and very addicting type of motion. And when you're hitting that ball and seeing that ball fly. So again, with anything in life, there's a process, and once you get good at those things and you repeat them, and just trusting your process, trust the decisions that you're making on a daily basis, knowing that they're right decisions. Of course, you don't want to be making a bunch of wrong decisions. But again, we're all going to fail. We're all going to have failures. I've failed a million times. I've never made every single kick, maybe in certain practices, things like that. But I've missed kicks. I promise you I have. I know Vihan has. We all miss kicks. We all have flaws. But again, we learn from them, right? So thanks again for coming on the show, and we'll definitely see everybody next Monday night at 5:30. And again, Vihan, kudos to you, brother. Thank you for coming on the show. You was my first guest, and I wish you much success in the future. All right, bud?
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Cheers, guys. Nice talking to you.
Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.